All right, welcome to Alabama Gristmill, and I'm the host, Mike Causey, and my co-host, Donna Causey. How you doing?
I'm doing good today. How are you doing?
Doing good. It's good to be back. We had to apologize. We got a little delay in the getting these out because we had a microphone break on us, so we had to replace that, and we're all back in business now. So that's good, and back going on our regular schedule.
Yeah, I hope we can keep it up as long as we can.
Yeah, because we love doing it, and we love seeing the numbers of the people listening grow. So, and always appreciate any feedback we got there. We've got a great story coming up about the Brierfield State Park and how it has an impact on Alabama history, and especially the pre-Magic City days of and the Iron days of Birmingham. It was kind of the front runner.
It's had its ups and downs, the little town of Brierfield, and it's a state park now, but it really had some ups and downs along the years.
Yes, it was a very dynamic history going on there. Before we get into that, I take care of the little business stuff. Like always, we appreciate all the patrons we have out there, and really appreciate the support. It really keeps things going here. In some cases, doing things like, get us enable us to buy a new microphone.
But that's exactly right. when they go out, and you can't do anything. But
exactly.
We got something special coming up for all our patrons too now, because we keep getting close to the goal, but we're not quite there. This time we decided there were a few people that missed out on the other two books, and we wanted to go ahead and let those be given away too. So you'll be able to download 3 books instead of 1 when we reach our goal of 350 people. So we're getting close. We only need about 20 more, and everybody that's a patron at that moment will get to download all 3 books.
And the other 2 books are the Alabama Footprints book, the first book that you have in the Alabama Footprints series, and also the Where Do I Start? Hits and Hips. Let's see if I can say that right. Hints and tips for beginning genealogists.
What's good about that one, there's 81 questions in there that you need to ask your loved ones that are elderly before they pass away. Time runs out on them. And how many times have you said, I wish I'd asked my grandmother that, or I wish, when you start thinking about history in the future. But if you go ahead and ask them now, then you'll have a place to start. It seems like a lot of people, when they get around in their 50s, they start thinking about their ancestry and get more involved. A lot of people do. So
yeah, and once if you miss a chance to ask that question, you never get it back. So
yeah,
it enables you to keep some good memories.
They have them locked away in their heads, and you've got to ask the questions now and get them on file. Put them down somewhere before they're gone.
And to become a patron, to join to get this and to get these downloads. Once we hit the 350 patrons, you just go to the website, alabamapioneers.com, and hit the button, become a patron. So you can become a patron as little as $2, and on up from there, depending on what level you want to support us. So we really appreciate that. So
in other words, if you hit the $2, you can get 3 books when we reach 350.
And these are ebooks. Let's be clear. These are downloadable ebooks.
Yeah, they're downloadable ebooks. That's right.
That you can read on read on a Kindle or any basic electronic device.
Right. You
can check those out there. So we've got those out there. So it helps us meet the goal and help support the Alabama Pioneers. We really appreciate it, and it's a labor of love for us. But there are expenses involved, and microphone being one of them. And to keep this all going. So it keeps the podcast going, as well as the website and the other different media outlets we're running, as well as social media, the newsletters. We've got newsletters that go out every day. Plus, if you're a patron, you also get a special newsletter sent to you. And you do that on a weekly or bi-weekly basis?
Bi-weekly. I'm a bit behind right now. I'm going to be sending another one out in the next couple of days, though, so you'll be able to get that. So with all the things we've had going on, we got behind a little bit on some things.
We're getting all caught up.
We're back on track now, though.
Well, we'll go ahead, and now we got the business done, I'll let you go ahead and get into the story of. Tell us a little bit about Brierfield State Park and the history and the impact it had on the great state of Alabama.
All righty. Brierfield, if anybody doesn't know where it is, it's located on the Little Cahaba River near the Chilton County line, and it's the richest part of the coal and iron deposits of Bibb County. And like I said, it's a state park now. The furnace site was first developed in 1861 by Caswell Campbell Huckabee. And he didn't live in the area. He came from New Bern, Alabama, and he connected up with a pioneer named Jonathan Newton Smith, who was the pioneer and planter from 6 Mile in Bibb County, Alabama. Brierfield is in Bibb County, Alabama. It's located on land. They located the furnace on land purchased from Jesse Mahan near the Little Cahaba River. The area was settled by a group of General Jackson's soldiers when they were returning from the victory of New Orleans to their new homes in Tennessee. They stopped off, and I guess they camped around the area and saw the beauty and the richness of the area and decided to bring their families back. Some of the families that returned included the Mahans, the Fanchers, the Massingales, Lindsays, Reagans, and Smiths. Major Mahan was one of the first who went into the area, and his grave is in the old cemetery. It bears the date of 1820, and the old Mahan home is still standing on the site of the Indian town. The settlers first lived in tents and then log houses, and then the Mahans, when they built their house, they explored the area a little more, and the father and the sons were the first to discover the presence of coal and iron at Brierfield. In 1851, Edward Mahan and Jonathan Ware sent an exhibit of that iron from Bibb County to the forges in the exposition in England. This iron ore took first prize and attracted the attention of people from around the world because it was so rich. The Brierfield furnace site was first developed in 1861 by Caswell Campbell Huckabee and Jonathan Newton Smith from 6 Mile on land purchased from Jesse Mahan. Huckabee didn't have much experience in the iron industry, but Jonathan Newton Smith was a forge operator at 6 Mile, so that's why Huckabee partnered with him. Huckabee provided most of the capital and the slave labor for construction. They called their furnace the Bibb County Iron Company. Soon other partners joined in, and named Samuel Green Wilson, who was a Tuscaloosa planter. He served as furnace manager, and J.D. Nance, a Bibb County saw and grist mill operator, also became a partner. Gray Huckabee from New Bern and Richard Fell, who was employed to build the 36-foot high stone blast furnace. And in 1862, a rolling mill was built. And the first iron was poured in November 1862. The company initially produced cast iron, but it was more lucrative, they found in time, to produce wrought iron, and a lot of their iron was used to produce farm instruments. The product of the Brierfield furnace really astonished the world, and they started requesting it from everywhere for making the great guns that were used for land and naval use. In 1862, the Confederate government passed 2 laws. They needed arms, so what they set about doing is trying to get the manufacturing companies to produce more. They allowed an advance of 50% of the construction costs to manufacturing companies that produced armaments. Huckabee, as superintendent of the works, signed agreements obligating 1,000 tons of pig iron per year for 3 years and for erecting a rolling mill. For his cooperation and good faith, he received $20,000 in Confederate bonds. Then, in 1863, the Confederacy was really getting pressure from everywhere for the production of armaments of war. So they had to do something to get even more iron. They told C.C. Huckabee that he could do one of 3 things. Either let the government have all the iron that he produced at the Bibb furnace, or sell the works to the Confederacy, or last of all, lease the works to the Confederate States of America. Well, Huckabee realized that actually, if he just leased it, he really wouldn't have any choice. The government would probably just confiscate his property. So on September 9th, 1863, the Bibb County Iron Company was sold to the Confederacy for $600,000. And there it remained with the Confederacy, and it would prove to be the only ironworks actually owned by the Confederate States of America. Within a year, the Confederate government added a second larger furnace alongside the first one. It became known as the Bibb Naval Works. The facility was a major contributor of iron used for the Confederate ordnance against, especially the Brooke cannon. Eventually, over 100 large naval Brooke cannons were produced in Selma exclusively with Brierfield's iron. The entire area at the time of the Civil War teemed with industrial life as the region became the industrial giant of central Alabama. This was before 1870 when Birmingham became involved. It also became a target for the Union forces because it was producing so much iron for the Confederacy. So on the morning of March 31st, 1865, Union General James H. Wilson of 10th Missouri Cavalry wrecked the furnaces and the rolling mill. But for some reason, they decided to spare the workers' houses and stables at the Bibb Works. And that's why we still have a few houses around today. Then in 1866, Brierfield was, of course, seized as a contraband of war. At that time, the federal government was beginning to sell off some of the works, and Francis Struthers Lyon from Demopolis purchased the works from the United States Freedmen's Bureau for $45,000, and he formed a new company called the Canebrake Company to reconstruct the mill. Associates in the Canebrake Company included General Josiah Gorgas, Crawford, James Browder, Edwin Glover, David Pratt, John Collins, Frank Griffin, and William Ross, a large number of men that were involved in it. The company placed Giles Edwards in charge of the work. After extensive repairs, the Brierfield Coal and Iron Company furnaces were reopened. By 1868, the plant was in full blast and known as the Struthers Furnace because it was named in honor of the mother of Mr. Lyon. James Mallett, a scientist and former University of Alabama professor, was hired to work at the iron works. On November 3rd, 1866, the first 4½ tons was poured. Tragedy, though, struck the furnaces again on July 18, 1867, when the furnace blew out and the rolling mill was shut down. In July 1869, I guess after working with it for a while trying to get it reopened, Josiah Gorgas just gave up and left Brierfield for greener pastures at the University of the South in Swanee, Georgia. He later returned to Alabama, though, and became the president of the University of Alabama. And this is another whole story with him. He's very involved in Alabama's history. But we'll go on more about Brierfield. The furnaces and the rolling mill were then leased to Thomas S. Alvis, an experienced iron maker from Virginia. Alvis got a partner named Thomas Ferguson, who was a banker from Selma, and they managed to scratch out a living making cotton ties for a number of years. Then the financial panic gripped the nation in 1873, and it caused the furnace to close down again until 1880, and the furnaces remained idle until 1881, when along came Thomas Jefferson Peter, the former general manager of the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad. He bought the ironworks and organized the Brierfield Coal and Iron Company and operated the works through most of the 1880s while adding coal mines and coke ovens. And this is about the same time that the Birmingham ironworks was starting up. New life was brought back to Brierfield for a time. A post office named Furnace was established, and the nearby town of Brierfield was nicknamed the Magic City of Bibb County. The Birmingham was named the Magic City, and so they said they were the Magic City of Bibb County. They were kind of competing for a little while there. In 1883, the Brierfield Iron and Coal Company had a nail factory, and it was the first one that turned out nails in Alabama. Even with all this progress, though, Peters just made a marginal income. He finally went bankrupt in 1889. And so when he went bankrupt, it gave him opportunity to reorganize, and he reorganized it as the Alabama Iron and Steel Company. And they were hoping that it would make it at this point, but tragedy struck again on Christmas Eve of all days in 1894, when the furnace of the Brierfield Coal and Iron Company blew out. By this time, the modern era had kind of taken over, and iron making had changed at that point. And a lot of the new devices and modern devices were in the Jefferson County area. And the technology at Brierfield, although cutting edge during the Civil War, was quite a bit outdated. This Christmas Eve accident thus ended forever the production of iron at Brierfield. In the years that followed the closure, the site lay abandoned. During World War II era, thousands of bricks were scavenged from the site, so you don't even know where a lot of the buildings were now. In 1976, the Bibb County Commission, at the urging of the Bibb County Historical Society, came along and said, hey, we need to make a park of this historic area, and they made a park from 45 acres. And this initial effort eventually evolved over the years into what is known now as the Brierfield Ironworks Historical State Park. The superintendent's house was constructed around 1882 for the Brierfield Coal and Iron Company, and the first occupant is thought to have been Thomas Jefferson Peter, and it is one of the only two surviving frame buildings from what at that time was considered a large industrial complex. They had a rolling mill, and besides the ironworks, they had a rolling mill, a nail mill, a coal washer, and as many as 140 workers' dwellings. In addition to the ruins of the furnaces, both covered by large metal canopies, several different historical buildings have been moved into the park over the years, and the nearby Brierfield Cemetery was established about the same time as the ironworks in 1850. It belongs and is cared for by the Alabama Historic Ironworks Commission, a state agency. The cemetery has also gone by the name of Cedar Grove Cemetery or an Evergreen Cemetery. If you turn off, there's a personal note, Michael connected with this site as well. As you turn off Highway 25 onto County Road 62, you know of the historic house on the hill, I'm sure, because you've been there before. Part of the house has been restored and serves as the information building to Brierfield State Park, and it's the entrance to the Brierfield State Park. And this home is actually the home of our ancestor, Absalom Pratt. Absalom built this house 8 miles west of there. See, around 1835, though a section of it was constructed a little bit earlier. This is only part of the house that is sitting on the hill now. The house was donated by my Pratt family and moved to this site in 1994 by the Cahaba Trace Commission, and it has been restored by the Alabama Historic Ironworks Commission in 1997-1998, and it was dedicated by both organizations on November the 15th, 1998. And a little side note, our Pratt family is a pioneer family of Bibb County, and they have been having a continuous reunion at Schultz Creek Baptist Church in Bibb County each July 4th for almost 100 years. We'll be celebrating our 100th reunion on July the 4th, 2023, and that's continuous reunions. We even have minutes to back it up. So we're looking for a big day on that day.
Yeah, it's going to be a big day for sure.
Yeah, it is. We're making our plans now.
Well, the thing I like about the story, too, is how in 1976, the Bibb County Historical Commission got together and said, we need to preserve this place. And it shows you the effort that just a couple of people deciding, we need to do it, turned it into a state park.
A lot of credit goes to the Mahan family, who really pushed for saving the area.
Well, with that, the story there, and hearing about how much, the history, how much history is there at the Brierfield State Park, it's definitely a good park to go visit and check out. And I know they do a lot of I think every year they do a cleanup. I think we just had one just last weekend or early this April.
Yeah, they do that with the state parks around the state. They have cleanups and all. And it takes a lot of good volunteers.
I do know, you can, like any state park, it's always help to volunteer and help out there. You can just call them up and they'll appreciate all the help in preserving that history.
Right. Volunteers really make up and protecting our history because, everything is that way. There's costs to everything. The more you can save on those costs, the more you can do to save Alabama's history.
If we do it all together and kind of, it's not as much effort, but it's a tremendous benefit for the park. Well, with that, we'll go ahead and wrap this episode up. Well, before I do that, I forgot to do earlier, I'd like to always give shout outs to different patrons that recently joined us. So I just picked randomly. We just had recently Gerald Lassiter joined, as well as Joni Wheeler. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. So thank you to those recent patrons, and there's plenty more out there that do it. So we appreciate that. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. We'll see you next episode on Alabama Gristmill.
Bye, guys.